Hi guys, when Donald Trump was president-elect, he began the process of putting together an administration filled with loyalists, the goal of which was that when he attempted to get something done, nobody would stand in his way. While governments around the world like this idea, there are a number of problems with it. One of the roles of the civil service is to implement government policy. It's the machine that keeps the economy and society functioning. It also has to operate under different rules to those of the government. Now, Donald Trump has been trying to shape the civil service to suit him as well, and Reform UK are literally telling us that that's what they want to copy. However, as I said, there are major problems with such an idea.
Both of the two main parties, they've got no business experience, no track record of success on their respective front benches. And
okay, before we continue, this is a ridiculous position to take, because running a government is completely different to running a company. He could also make the argument, well, we shouldn't have a health secretary who isn't a doctor or who hasn't worked in a hospital, which would actually be a more valid point than the one that he's trying to make here, because a business's goal is to turn a profit. Now, that profit may be reinvested in the company or it may be given out to the shareholders in dividends. But the goal of a company is to make a profit. Now, if a company is not making a profit, it has to find ways to cut back on their costs. And one of the ways of doing that is to lay off staff. But a government or a government department's job is to provide a service to the public. It's not to make a profit. So comparing a government department or a government to a company is nonsensical. Because once again, a government department's job is to provide a service to the public, not to make a profit. A business's job is to make a profit, generally.
And so we've got a track record of getting things done, making things happen, growing successful businesses, and we will not stand for those sort of hurdles being put in our way. So yes, there needs to be fundamental reform of some of those issues you've just mentioned, particularly the civil service. They don't run the country, they're not elected to run the country.
But unless you sack them, how do you change them?
And bluntly, that is it. Unless they understand they're either going to do what the elected government say they're going to do, or yes, they absolutely will be fired. We will not stand for these people putting blockages in a way. So they've got a choice to make. Either they work with us and we need to bring more successful people from the outside. If they're not going to work with us, we will fire them. We will bring in people from the private sector. We will get things done. We will not tolerate those sort of blockages put in our way. The British people are sick and tired of civil servants thinking they run the country. They don't. They're there to do the job that the elected ministers instruct them to do. And if they don't do it, they're in breach of contract. Fire them.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Is Richard Tice stupid, or does he just pretend to be stupid because he hopes that Reform UK voters are stupid enough to vote for such rubbish? Now, why is this rubbish? So let's take a step back. Imagine a Reform UK government, a horrible idea, but imagine a Reform UK government, and what they're trying to do is, for example, stop the boats. They want to dump people in France. So how are they going to achieve that? Well, they will say, what we're going to do is we're going to put people in charge in the administration who will do that. If there are people in the civil service who say, look, we can't or we don't want to do this, well, then we'll just replace them. Replace them with whom? Richard Tice is probably going to replace them with Reform UK supporters or voters. Now, there are a number of problems with this. First of all, you're going to sack people who have experience of running government departments with people who probably don't. Or most certainly do not, because if they do, then they would still be working in government departments. So you're going to replace people who have experience with no experience, or almost no experience. Then, as I've mentioned before in the past, civil servants are accountable. They have to be held accountable. So as I said before, when Priti Patel or Suella Braverman was talking about using the Navy to turn back boats, well, members of the armed forces are not willing to break international law or break British law because they will be the one facing a judge or a tribunal or a court-martial. They don't want to go down that road. To suit who? To suit Priti Patel, to suit a Tory minister, or to suit a Reform UK government. As I keep saying, the politicians will not face the music. It will be the civil service. So Richard Tice wants to replace the current civil service with sycophants, with fans of the Reform UK party, people who will just do as they're told, who have no experience, and he thinks he's going to get things done. This is nonsensical. And let's say, for the sake of argument, they do. Well, I don't know where they're going to find these people because there's a shortage of workers at the moment. So, Reform UK are also talking about downsizing the government. They want to have a smaller government. So they're going to lay off a load of people. How are you going to deliver public services with fewer staff? And how are you going to deliver public services with staff who have no understanding of how the civil service works? None of this makes sense. It's pandering to right-wing voters. Don't worry, what we're going to do is we're going to implement our policies. We're going to and if the current civil service say this is illegal or I'm not going to do it, we're going to sack them and put in our own people who'll do as they're told. But there are fundamental problems with that. First of all, you're putting in people who don't know what they're doing. And if these people do as they're told, then they will be the ones who will face a tribunal. Now, some people may do it for the money, but that's not going to last very long if you're facing a judge 10, 15 years from now. None of this makes sense. And back to his original point, excuse me, putting, we are the ones who can deliver success because we have worked in business. Obviously, anyone who's making the business argument when it comes to government does not understand either how government works or what government is all about. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.